Today I'm working on a vintage Gretsch Chet Atkins Nashville model that the owner's dad bought for him when he was a teenager. Sentimental jobs like this are some of my favorites, so let's see if we can bring this guitar back to life. The binding is sticking out quite a bit and feels very uncomfortable. I'll put the guitar on its side and take care of that problem with an X-Acto knife and some Scotch tape. Once all the excess binding is scraped away, it'll feel a lot better. The neck relief is good, with the neck almost dead straight, and the action at the first fret is about 15 thousandths, which is nice and low. However, the string spacing is very cramped. Widening the spacing would make this magnitudes more playable. And as for the fit of the nut, I'm just going to let it speak for itself. A new nut would be such a huge help that I got started on it right away. Careful removal is the name of the game here. There's a lot of glue holding this nut in place, so I use a brand new X-Acto blade to start scoring the glue between the nut and the headstock veneer. Then I use a 10 thousandths Stumac nut slotting saw to further cut through the glue. I want to make sure that the nut and the headstock veneer are completely separated. Then I give it a sharp blow with a long block and a hammer, and repeat this on the opposite side and down the length of the nut until it breaks loose. Occasionally the nut will come out in pieces. We're making a new one, so don't sweat it. The important thing is that the old nut comes out clean. Using micro chisels and a nut seating file, I clear the old glue and imperfections out of the slot to get it ready for a new nut. I'll start with a square bone blank. The first step is to thickness it so it fits in the slot. I'll save the bone dust from sanding for use as a nut slot repair powder, then put the blank in the slot and mark the dimensions. Cutting it out on the bandsaw and shaping it on the spindle sander, I achieve the rough shape and can start slotting. I'll start with the outside E-strings, then once those are set, I'll do the inner strings. Check out the description box on this video for a link to my 12-string nut slotting tutorial, which includes in-depth information on my double square and caliper method for cutting nut slots. After slotting and shaping, I'll drop it in a cup of coffee for a few minutes, which gives it a great antique color. The spacing is looking so much better now, and I can feel a huge difference when playing it. The next issue is fret height. The owner complained of the fret height interfering with his playing, and at 59 thousandths high, I can see why. They also have heavy oxidation, so spiffing them up is more than welcome. I'll go at the frets pretty aggressively with a coarse file and a leveler of my own design, and once I've got them down to 50 thousandths, I'll make sure they're level by using my full-length leveling beam. To recrown the frets, I'll start with a coarse triangular file to speed things along. Once I get the profile close, I'll switch to a smooth cut file. When the crowning profile is down to a thin straight line, I hit the fret with some 220 grit paper and then a 400 grit fret eraser to polish it out. After doing every individual fret, I'll hit the whole board with some 4/0 steel wool as a final buff. The frets are not only looking shiny and new, but are feeling a lot better. It's amazing what a difference not even 10 thousandths of an inch can make. The action at the 12th fret is 4/64 on the bass side, but over 6/64 on the treble side, which is way too high. And here we find another problem. The bridge is already completely bottomed out. Also, the string alignment is even worse than it is at the nut, with the strings very cramped. The strings would benefit not only from being a lot lower, but from being spaced a bit wider as well. The solution here is first to take the bottom of the bridge down on the spindle sander. I'll do this carefully by eye, and then make sure the feet of the bridge fit the top perfectly by putting some stick-it sandpaper down on the top and sanding the bridge on it. Next, I'll replace the saddles with these unplated brass ABR1 saddles from Stumac, which are quite a bit shorter than the previous saddles and will help lower the action even more. They also come without notches for complete control over the string spacing. I'll remove the old saddles, then load the new saddles onto the screws and put them into the bridge. With the bridge back on the guitar, I'll locate the spacing for the outside E-strings by eye, marking either side of the string with a pencil and using a nut file to cut a slot right in the middle. I cut the slots for the rest of the strings using my digital calipers and the A-B divided by C equals S formula, which you can find more information about in the description box of this video. The new brass saddles look great and did help a little with the action, but there is an issue. To get the strings to the proper height, I had to cut some of the slots pretty deep, which makes the contact point for the strings way too wide. And even on the other saddles, the tops are a bit too wide to begin with. Leaving any of the string contact points wide and flat can have disastrous effects on your intonation, tone, and clarity, but especially when it comes to the saddles. By reducing the contact point on the saddle to a thin edge, you drastically improve intonation and retain the clarity and definition of your tone. To do this, you have to file the top of the saddle down and repoint it, similar to how we leveled and recrowned the frets earlier. With the saddle in the Stumac nut and saddle vise, file the top of the saddle until the slot is shallow, just deep enough to hold the string. Then hold the file at an angle and file until there's a thin, even line across the top. Using an aggressive file helps to speed things along at first, but as I get closer, I use a less aggressive file and stop frequently to check my work to make sure it's even. When finished, the saddles will look sharp and professional, and intonating them will be a breeze. Slotted to be a lot more spacious as well, this guitar is feeling light years ahead of where it was. Combined with the new nut, there's much more room for the strings, and the difference in playability is tremendous. With the action set to the owner's preference of a little over 5/64 and 4/64 on the bass and treble sides, it's time to move on to the finishing touches. For a little restoration, I'll use some Blue Magic metal polish to clean up all the metal parts. Seeing the shine and luster return to each part as you work the polish into and off of them is a great feeling, and it's also good to know that it'll protect them against corrosion in the future. While cleaning up the pickup covers, I also remembered that the neck pickup was way too low. Using some popsicle stick clippings as shims, I'll put them into the neck pickup cavity before putting the pickup back in. This will place it a lot closer to the strings, and the neck pickup will be a lot louder now and balance better with the bridge pickup. Reassembling everything after cleaning it up, this guitar is finally looking like it's coming together. Still, we've got a little more fine-tuning to do. After putting some new 11 to 48 gauge strings on, which are a little heavier than what was on there, I'm also going to put just a little more tension on the truss rod to counteract the string tension and keep the neck relief at around 5/1000. The last thing we have to do is install a treble bleed. These guitars are notorious for high-end loss when rolling the volume down, and it was one of the owner's major complaints. A .001 microfarad capacitor wired across the input and output lugs of the volume pot will do the trick. The hard part is getting the pot back into position. It's buried way inside the guitar, and I have to use a pair of 12-inch locking pliers to grip the pot shaft and guide it back into the hole. Once the shaft is through, I carefully tighten it by hand, then use a screwdriver and a spanner wrench to sock it down tight. All that's left is to put the knob back onto the pot shaft. I'll use some Meguiar's swirl remover to polish out the body, and we're done. This was a lot of work, but it's finally paid off, with the guitar looking beautiful and playing great. Let's give it a try. I cannot stop playing this thing. Man, when everything comes together and the guitar feels great and you know the customer's going to be really happy with it, there's just no other feeling like this in the world. And just sitting here playing it, I always say this, but you know it's done when you can't put the guitar down. I kind of screwed that up at the end, but let me try it again. Yeah, there's a great video of Doc Watson, Chet Atkins, and Leo Kottke playing that last steam engine train. So in keeping with the Chet Atkins model here. So anyway, that's it for this video, and as always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again. And well, you know the routine.